All right, well, welcome today. First session of the day. Glad you can make it. Now, before we get started, I'd love to hear any expectations you might have of this seminar. What are you expecting to get out of today? I'd like to get to know you a little better while we're doing that. So what do you hope we accomplish today?
Just get better at SEO.
So better at SEO, what did you say back there?
Just kind of, well, you're saying using Hubspot, right? So just kind of modeling how you would use it, so kind of some tips and tricks.
Okay. All right. What else we got? Any other expectations?
I use it as a CRM, but I'd see what else.
So you use HubSpot as a CRM right now. Okay. Anything else? So Lindsay, we should probably get them some HubSpot flyers. We actually have a HubSpot user group coming up on Tuesday evening. If you're interested in HubSpot and using a CRM, you come and utilize that. So today's discussion is to be more strategic in nature, more high level. So we may not get you any specific tips and tricks. However, the concepts you should be able to apply. And then if you come to the HubSpot user group, you certainly can get a lot more of that. We're planning a big event for March where we will give lots of tips and tricks, probably 3 or 4 classes on different topics. This month's HubSpot user group is more trying to set the stage of what's expected from the participants.
Could I find that at Meetup or?
Yeah, so actually we'll hand you a flyer right now, and you'll be able to come anytime you come for next week. Let us know you're coming, and we can get some foodstuffs for you.
Thank you.
We've got more if there's more HubSpot.
So the big topic I think right now is that of automation. So today we're going to talk about automation, what's appropriate for automation, what's not appropriate for automation, and what are some free tools. HubSpot is one of them that we'll be talking about, but there are other free tools, and there are certainly tools that aren't so free, and give you that kind of an overview of some options to work through. Now, to give you just a sense of who I am, I founded Tribute Media a little over 10 years ago, almost 10 and a half years ago. We are a digital marketing agency based in downtown Meridian, but I come from a background of about 25 years running printing presses and doing graphic design, taught graphic design for the web at the University of Utah for a number of years. So I've kind of understand this space pretty well. But I am a businessman first. Even though I consider myself a graphic designer, I consider myself a web designer, a developer, and a marketer. I'm a businessman first, a web guy second. And I'm the father of 5 wonderful children. I was teasing them. I was going to tell you that there were 4 of them that were wonderful, and one was kind of a treasured acquaintance. And then we as an agency are a HubSpot Gold Partner. So hopefully we're qualified to talk about some of these things. Just briefly, an agenda, I'm going to talk a little about the buyer's journey, the process that buyers go through to make a decision when they're ready to buy something. We're going to talk a little about what marketing automation is, workflows and processes and how they might work together in aiding this automation. What are the different types of things that we can automate? In fact, I'll have a little bit of a quiz, and we'll see what you get right and what you don't. And then tools. I'll talk a little about the tools, about what you should be looking at, and that might. I think that's a good place to lead into the questions you might have, because there are quite a variety of tools out there. I'm only listing a few of them, but if there are some that you want to talk about in addition, I may know them, I may not, but we can go ahead and talk through those. And then, of course, I want to leave some time at the end for questions. So I'm hoping that the presentation part of this is only about 25 or 30 minutes. If we don't have any questions, we'll just move on. Feel free to ask questions as we go as well. Also, if you are not currently set up with HubSpot free, I'll post this link at the end as well, tributemedia.com/HubSpot-free. I'll actually help you get it set up. I'll spend 30 minutes with you, no cost, no obligation, just to help you get it set up. So if you don't have either the CRM, which is free, or the marketing software, which is free, then let me know. We'll talk more about what HubSpot is and what it means as we get towards the end, and we start talking about the tools. And I'll post this link again for you. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the buyer's journey. Who here has heard about this buyer's journey, these 3 stages? Anybody? We got 1, we got 2. Well, if you work with HubSpot CRM, you've probably heard about it. So the buyer's journey is the active research process that everyone goes through when they're making a decision on what to buy. And it doesn't matter if it's something as inexpensive as a toothbrush or as complicated as a jet. We always go through this process. And the awareness stage, and let's use the example of a toothbrush just so you kind of get a quick sense of how it works. Maybe at the beginning of the awareness stage, I understand that I need a toothbrush. Maybe I have halitosis and I got to brush my teeth a little more frequently, and so I go to the store. As I get to the store, the first thing I'll notice in the aisle are a number of options. I'm now gaining awareness of all the options that are available. As I start to narrow down those choices, I'm moving into the consideration stage. And the consideration stage ends up where I'm comparing maybe two options, two price points, two brands. And then at the beginning of the decision stage is where I find that I put that toothbrush in my cart, and the conclusion of the decision stage is when I actually give money for that. Now with a toothbrush, this whole process might take a total of 30 seconds to give without the time needed to travel to the checkout. But depending on your business, it could take a few weeks, it could take a few months. What we do know is that about 80% of the people get all the way to the start of the decision stage before they choose to make contact with a salesperson. Now what's interesting about that is a stat from the automotive industry. 20 years ago, people would go to about 4.5 auto dealerships before they would make a decision. And that's why when you go to an auto dealership, you have that stereotypical response or question of, what do I need to do to put you in a car today? And today, that's not the case. Today, average buyers go to 1.1 lots before they make their decision. So 20 years ago, the likelihood was high that if you left the dealership, that you were probably not going to be buying from that dealership. But the odds are high today, about 90% chance that if you go to the car dealership today, that you are likely going to buy that from that dealership at some point in the future. So the sales approach for salesmen is softer. Now it's also very interesting, if you're the guy who likes to negotiate, they know that stat, that if you come, you're probably going to buy from me, so they're not as willing to negotiate. So it kind of flips it on its head a little bit, advantages and disadvantages. But there is something interesting that we know also. The earlier we can gain engagement with someone in the buyer's journey, two very magical and important things happen. The first thing that happens is people are more likely to buy from us. And the second is they're more likely to spend more money. We're likely to generate more revenue, or generate more profit. And part of the reason for that is that they begin to develop a trust with us. Now that does not necessarily mean that they need to talk with us to engage with us. It could be engaged in social media, it could be engaged in email, it could be more time that they're spending on our website and seeing offers that are meaningful to them. And especially if that website evolves and changes so that the next time they come to the website, they see something not only that is different from what they saw before, but is also more in tune to what they are now looking for. So if they're early in the awareness stage and they're starting to gain awareness the first time they come, and when they're starting to get to the point where they're ready to consider options, and they come back to the website and the website has magically changed to look like the consideration options that they want to take part in, then we have a greater likelihood of engaging with them and working with them, and they're more likely to buy from us. So the question is, now this is a little bit of a trivia question, I suppose. What is marketing automation? How would you define marketing automation?
Something like taking the human element out of it.
So taking the human element out, that's one way to look at it. Anybody else have a thought? How would you define marketing automation? No thoughts? Blank? All right. So when we think about marketing automation, the first thing we think about is robots taking over, right? We think about something happening. Now, automation, we're seeing it at McDonald's, we're seeing it at all sorts of places. Automation in orders, self-checkouts have been around for a number of years. That's a form of automation. Interestingly enough, as a side note, my son did a project for school about robots and their effect on the employment. And the big fear is that automation is going to remove jobs from the workplace. And so his initial premise, his initial thesis argument was going to be that robots are bad for employment. The more research he found, the more research that he conducted, he learned that automation simply changes the way we do business, but it doesn't replace the requirement of the employee. Now, in terms of marketing automation, it's a little more like the Matrix. We have this idea of things that need to be done, and it's the developers that have to do most of that in order to automate it. But fortunately, we don't have to worry about the coding side anymore. So marketing automation is using software to automate repetitive tasks, repetitive marketing tasks. And these can be for email, social media, and a variety of other website actions. So there's a lot of things that we can do with marketing automation. And we're going to talk about one of the most common ways that you can automate marketing, and probably something that you could go home today and set up at no cost other than the time that you spend at it. Now there are lots and lots, hundreds, in fact, there might even be thousands of marketing automation platforms out there. The landscape has changed so much. We, as I mentioned, we're a Hubspot partner, but there's also Marketo. Those are the two big enterprise class systems. Infusionsoft is for small businesses, and I was wondering, as I was studying and researching Infusionsoft a few months ago, I spent a number of hours in Infusionsoft, and I kept seeing people come up with, they kept calling it Confusionsoft. After spending 15 hours in the software, I completely understand. MailChimp is what you can actually start with today and provide some of these automation services that we talk about. In fact, the most common thing we're going to talk about today can be handled through MailChimp free of charge. So we're going to talk about how this works. Now, when we think about automation, we're going to think about workflows and processes. Remember, it's repetitive tasks, things that we do on a routine and regular basis. And automation for emails and internal processes allow us to communicate more effectively with our audience and communicate more effectively with people that we want to talk to. So there are two different types of processes that we can consider. Now on the left side here, we've got these manual processes. There are certain things that we cannot automate. We cannot automate a human calling a human. Now there are computers, there's some AI out there that, and you may have even received a robocall or a telemarketing call from a robot. Right now, it's not super difficult to tell the difference between an automated call and or an automated support person on the phone and an actual real person. But I think we're not more than a couple of years away where that will be indistinguishable. So the telltale sign, if you're talking to a robot on the phone, is if you just ask them if they're a robot, and usually it will precede by a chuckle, and then it'll say, it sounds something like, haha, no, I'm a real person. And then you ask them again, they might have a couple of variations of that, but if you ask them a few times and they just keep repeating the same things over and over again, you pretty much know. So processing physical orders might be the case. We've got to verify that our automation is working. We want to make sure that the things that we put in place to automate are actually working. Now the other thing that we've got here on this other side are, like thank you emails is probably the most common. You fill out a form, you get a thank you email. We've got next step offers, the things that we want to do, and then also anything that supports our manual process. So I'm going to show you again, we've got our, two little stats. First thing I wonder if you knew. Average response time for a salesperson to contact a new lead is 42 hours. Now I am amazed at how often I'll submit a lead online and they'll never call me. Getting ready to wrap my truck. I want to put some Tribute Media logo on it, and I sent a lead request, or a quote request with graphics. I'm making it easy on you guys. to 3 different companies. It took 36 hours for one company to respond. That was 3 weeks ago, and 2 of the 3 companies still have yet to respond. Why not? Now, the second interesting stat about leads is a lead is 21 times more likely to become qualified if you call them in less than 5 minutes versus 30 minutes. Just that difference from 30 to 5 gets you 21 times more likely to qualify that lead. So when a lead comes into your office right now, ask yourself the question, how long does it take you? Yeah.
Is this deck here that you're showing, is this available?
Yeah, so I'll give you an opportunity to get it later if you'd like. Absolutely. Okay. So think about how long does it take you to respond to a lead when it comes in? Does it take you 10 minutes, 15 minutes? Is it when it comes in you say, I'm not sure I want to call now. I'll wait a couple hours. It'll be fine. How many sales are you missing out on? I have a friend who conducted a study over a year. He received about 400 leads. Actually, he just did the study for the first 400 leads. It was a little over 400 he received for the year. For the first 400 leads, he called every single lead that year. Either him or his business partner called every single lead that year in about 3.5 minutes. And it didn't matter which time of day he made that call. A few of them he even made in the middle of the night, like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., because that was when the lead came in. Every single lead they called within less than 5 minutes, usually about 3.5 minutes. Out of 400 leads, he had 2 people that got upset with him for calling. I'm okay with those odds. I'm okay if 2 out of 400 people get upset with me. Now, most interesting little scenario is I was working with a client, at the time it was a prospective client in November. And the prices that we had to offer, they just didn't work for him. And about a month later, I got a lead notification that he was looking at Hubspot.com at their pricing. And so I got that lead notification within about 30 seconds of him visiting the site. I happened to be in a position I could call him. I called him. I bet I called him within 2.5 minutes of him leaving that lead or leaving that request at Hubspot.com. Now, I hadn't talked to him in a month. He'd already told me that he couldn't do business with me because he couldn't afford us. And when I called him, I said, hey, Stephen, this is Corey Smith with Tribute Media. No joke, his first response out of his mouth was, oh, hey, I had a quick question for you. It was as though he had asked me to call him personally, and he had sent a pricing request on my vendor's website. And then as we started talking, we realized, oh, he did have money. He did have goals. He's now a client of ours, and we're helping him grow his new business. So get those calls out early. Now, there are ways that we can do to help that. And the first thing we need to think about is we've got to automate what we can. Now, I mentioned that the most common way that we automate is a simple thank you email. So if someone fills out a form, we send them a simple email that says, thank you for filling out the form. Now, there's more to it than we can do, but if we can at least get that far and send that simple email, we've already gone a great distance to engaging with them. So our email, depending on which form you fill out, it might say something like, hey, thank you for filling out the form. As you can imagine, this is an automated email, otherwise we wouldn't have sent it to you so quickly. But you could, in theory, fake a little bit and send the email 3 minutes afterwards and say, hey, I just got your request. I'd love to schedule a meeting to chat with you. If you wanted email to be your response. The best response is still a phone call. So let's look for a moment now back at our buyer's journey. We've got our 3 stages: awareness, consideration, and decision stage. And let's start thinking about the different ways that we can engage with people through this process. So I'm going to give you the example of Tribute Media. So we have an offer that starts right at the beginning, is the awareness stage. So I'm an author of a book. In fact, I'm going to give you an opportunity at the end to take one home. And this is very early awareness stage. We're not saying buy something from us. We're not saying here are options that you need to consider. It's intentionally written that it's a book about marketing strategy, and the author happens to also be the founder of Tribute Media. not this is Tribute Media who has authored this book and it's all about our services. It's a very broad marketing strategy, web strategy book. So when people get this offer, and that's the first stage, well, the next thing that they would do is they might take the self-assessment. So we have an offer where people can take a complete assessment all on their own. It's another way for them to engage with us. And as they engage with us, they start answering questions, and there's multiple steps in that they engage in. And as they find those opportunities that they see where they can improve, they could even take that improvement and do something themselves. They don't necessarily need to hire us. Now, once they have completed this early consideration stage, now the next thing we want to see if we can engage them personally. Now, I'm not opposed to calling these individuals, but I have to remember they're not asking for a call. So I might call them and just say, hey, you got the book. Any questions? Or, hey, you took the self-assessment. Any questions? But this late consideration stage is, now that you've read the book, now that you have completed the self-assessment, maybe you need a professional to give you an audit. It's a free audit, but let's take some time to do that. We also have a couple of other things that we do by default. Tuesday Tips newsletters. It's a tips newsletter that we put out every Wednesday. No, I'm just kidding, Tuesday. We're clever in our naming convention, right? And then we have a default. If we don't have another thing, we just kind of put this around. That's a late consideration stage. Right? Too often we think, oh, let's just put request a quote, or call us now, or let us call you. That's good for people at this stage of the buyer's journey, but it's terrible for people that are here early in the buyer's journey. So the question though comes, well, how do we get people to move through this process if we're not talking to them? Well, and that is where nurturing campaigns come in. So as an example, first thing that we do when someone fills out the request for a book is we have to gather their phone number so we can call them and verify that the address that they gave us is correct, because it's a physical book that we have to mail them. Once we verify that, then we put it in the mail, and 6 or 7 days later, an email comes from me thanking them for requesting the book, making sure that they received it okay. Another couple of weeks later, I'm going to send them another email, all automated, that says, hopefully you've read the book, here's my favorite part. And then then on the third email, then we start introducing this self-assessment, we move through. Okay? Does that make sense? All of that's automated. So we start with our thank you email, right? Then we're going to have, let's push it again, various emails that lead to the next offer. So if your next offer is trying to get people to contact you, then we've got a number of emails that increasingly become more pointed, right? First email is, hey, thank you. Second email is, hey, by the way, you might be interested in this little offer. The third email might be, hey, since you've been doing such and such, or this is part of your business, whatever the case might be, this is really important. Now at the end, if they haven't done that, that's where a kind disengagement email comes in. This is where you say, hey, I'm not going to bug you anymore. I've put this out there, but you won't hear from me again. And we find it interesting how often we get people to respond when we tell them we're no longer going to remind you that this is a thing, right? And I think what happens is most of us, we get so busy that we file it away and say, I'll get to it later. And then the next email comes, oh, that's right, I want to do that. I'm not sure I can get to it right now. I'll file it away and hopefully deal with it later. And, well, maybe they'll remind me. But then when you finally get the email that says, hey, I'm not going to bother you anymore, then you realize, oh, I better do something with this because he's not going to remind me anymore. And people will go through that process. So the question now is, what can you automate? So I'm just curious, we're going to go through this one by one. And can we automate social media? So we can't, can we, what do you think? Can we automate social media?
Yeah.
What are some ways that we can automate social media?
Well, a lot of them have SDKs.
Well, they have software developer kits, but what can we do to automate social media?
Schedule your posts.
What's that?
Schedule your posts.
So scheduling posts is probably the simplest way that we can automate social media. So maybe I only have time once a week to sit down and focus on my social media, I can schedule out posts. What else can we automate as far as social media is concerned? What's that?
Ads.
So you can do some automation in ads. You can do, and you have to get separate software. Facebook doesn't really do it very well, but there is software available to automate advertising. You can also automate that when I post a blog post, it will automatically publish. There are even softwares that will allow for a smart posting, right? It'll post when it's likely to get most engagement. So a lot of things in social media that we can automate. What about search engine optimization? Can we automate search engine optimization? Everybody know what search engine optimization is? Can we automate that? Yes, no, maybe?
There are a few hackers that have found out how.
What's that?
A few hackers have found out how.
So the reality is we can automate search engine optimization. We automate it in different ways, though. Okay, and it's not necessarily that we can put out a piece of software that's going to ensure that we get to the top of the search engines, because the hackers, Google's algorithm is going to try and flush those out. But we can automate the keyword research that comes with it. We can automate the analytics that come in through search engine optimization, and we can then optimize our pages based on that information. Email marketing, I mean, that's an obvious yes, right? We just talked about that. We talked about automation there. What about paid search? Can we automate paid search? So let me give you an idea of the easiest example of an automation for paid search. If you do a search for rubber boats, you are very likely to see a pay-per-click ad that says buy rubber boats at Amazon or buy rubber boats at Walmart. That's a very simple example of automation of pay-per-click, right? There are lots of other ways to do it. If you're interested in looking at that, WordStream is one of the companies that does that. It's not cheap, but if you have a large pay-per-click budget, that's the way to go. Sales appointment setting. Now here is one of my favorite things to think about is how do we get more sales appointments? Do you think we can automate this? What do you think? If you're a salesman, can you do it? So there's a lot of cool things we can do with automation. There is a concept called email sequences, sales sequences. It's a little different than the marketing automation, which we call drip email campaigns. A sales sequence is not governed by CAN-SPAM requirements, because when you send marketing, you send bulk. And anything you send in bulk digitally can be classified or not classified as spam. But if you send email one at a time and it's manually created, CAN-SPAM doesn't apply. So we can create it. We have a system that will allow you to queue up 4 or 5 emails that you put one person in. You customize each of those emails for that individual person. And that email sequence automatically stops if and when that person takes action. As an example, I might set up a sales sequence of 5 different tasks. The first task is an email that's sent to them and just say, hey, haven't talked in a while, would love to get coffee. Either call me and set up an appointment or check out my meeting link and program and just choose some time that makes most sense for you. If a week goes by and no action has taken place, a second email, hey, I'm not sure if you got my email last week. Love to get together with you. Here's some times I'm available. Here's my meeting link. The third task that might go out is it might just be a task for me that says, reach out manually on LinkedIn, just make sure that he's willing to connect. The fourth task might be, hey, I haven't heard from you yet, not sure if we want to do it. If I don't hear from you again, I'll try you maybe in a week, but then I won't bother you again. And oftentimes that disengagement email gets the most action. Okay? So sales appointment setting is a very effective thing to automate. And then website actions. What can we do on the website that allows that it can be automated? Any ideas? This is a tough one, right? How do we automate the behavior on a website? So let me give you an example. So this is a recent screenshot. I took the screenshot yesterday of the Tribute Media blog. And when you come in here, if you've never been to our site before and you've never taken action on our site before, you're going to see a link or a call to action to get our Tuesday tips. It's a no obligation kind of a thing. You sign up for our Tuesday tips, and then every week you get new tips. No sales pitches, nothing. You get new tips in your inbox. Well, after you have accomplished that, then the next thing that happens, next time you come back, you're going to get now, let's get off to the side so you can see it. Now it's our general contact us, right? Now it might be something more specific depending on where we're trying to lead people through the buyer's journey, but a very simple example. Now I'm going to give you another example. I didn't take a screenshot of it, but Intermountain Pet Hospital is one of our clients, and you go to their lodge page to book your dog or cat into their lodge. And if once you've booked, it knows if you're a dog or a cat owner. In the future, when you go back, if you're a dog owner, dogs appear first. If you're a cat owner, cats appear first. So it now gives them a little bit of understanding that, oh, I'm more important because I'm a cat person. And even if they don't think it, it's a subtle reminder, it's a subtle opportunity to give people these opportunities. All right, so let's talk about the tools. And we'll leave time for some question and answers, so we're going to kind of go through this. And this is a good opportunity to start asking questions. So the first thing we're going to talk about is social media. And they're the two tools that I think you should consider, and there probably are a number of others that I think that you could probably consider, are Hootsuite and ManageFlutter. Who's heard of Hootsuite? Hootsuite? What does Hootsuite do?
Allows you to schedule your social media, how you want it, develop a campaign.
So we can schedule social media, but what's also nice is we can schedule it across multiple platforms. So if I've got a LinkedIn and a Twitter and a Facebook, I can schedule those messages to go out. The old school way of automating social media and these social channels still try and pull this off is I'll post it to LinkedIn and automatically post the same thing to Facebook and Twitter. Or I'll automatically post it to Twitter and it'll automatically go out. And when people see that kind of automation where every time you see a post it's just a link to another site, then that channel is devalued. So if your Twitter always says part of the title and then it has a link to the Facebook post that you posted, then there's no reason for them to be on Facebook with you. So you still want to customize it per channel, and Hootsuite is a great tool for that. Now ManageFlutter, I bring up ManageFlutter, it's specifically for Twitter, but what's cool about it is it allows you to manage your following. It makes it easy to identify new people to follow and encourage people to follow you back. It makes it easier to know who's engaged and who's not. You can unfollow people that are fake accounts. You can unfollow people that aren't engaging at all. For example, you can run a filter that says, I want to remove everybody that hasn't posted in 90 days or 30 days. Or I want to remove everyone that doesn't post in English if my audience is English, or doesn't post in Spanish if my audience is Hispanic or from South America, or whatever the case might be. So ManageFlutter, highly recommend it. Their free service is pretty dumbed down, but their paid service, not super expensive, highly valuable if Twitter's going to be an important thing for your audience. So we talked about MailChimp. MailChimp does have a free account. Last I checked, and they shift their pricing around a little bit. Last I checked, you can have unlimited contacts and up to 2,000 email sends per month at no cost. Once you go above 2,000 email sends, then their cost is based on the number of contacts you have in your system. And if I remember correctly, about 3,000 contacts and unlimited email sends is only like $40. So it's a very cost-effective way. Now, we use Hubspot for our full marketing automation. Hubspot does have a free version, as we talked about before. And what's cool about the Hubspot free version is you could tie it to the free version of MailChimp. So even though Hubspot free doesn't do the full marketing automation and doesn't bring in, allow you to send any emails, you can have those contacts synchronized natively. There's no special fancy thing you have to do. And you can use HubSpot free and you can use MailChimp free so HubSpot to manage the contact part of it and get some user analytics. And then you can use MailChimp to actually send automated emails. And that workflow example that I gave you before, email 1, and then a few days later, email 2, leading people to the next offer, you can totally do in MailChimp. If you don't have a very big contact list, it'll stay free for as long as you need it. Now, you had some specific questions on HubSpot, I think, right?
Me?
No,
Oh.
in the back. Because you said you wanted some tips on HubSpot?
No, it's just more of a curiosity factor.
More of a curiosity factor. So I want you to think about HubSpot. When we think about full marketing automation, HubSpot allows for the breadth of everything that we can do. It allows for us to automate website actions. It allows us to automate social media actions. It allows us to automate email. It allows us to automate the way people engage in landing pages. It allows us to send out tasks to different people. So full marketing automation is HubSpot. But I don't want you to feel like this is a sales pitch for HubSpot. We'll pitch you another time for that. But I want you to understand that there's a free version that you can use, and a lot of people use that free version, never feel the need to upgrade. There's a lot of power in analytics, and even the base level of upgrade is only $50 per month, and it gives you some pretty cool analytics. As I mentioned, we've got, and if you don't have a flyer, we've got our HubSpot user group first meeting next week, and we'll talk about some of these things as well, and talk about what further training is coming in that realm. Okay, so the last question I want to kind of discuss is, if you can automate it, can't we just set it and forget it? What do you think to that? If I can automate an email workflow, should I never have to worry about it again?
No.
So the true answer is no, right? So this goes back to my son's example of our robots taking over jobs. And yes, they are taking jobs, but jobs now shift to handle it. Now, the best example I can think of is elevators, right? When elevators first came about, you had to have an operator. You had to have someone standing in the elevator. And then after a number of years, when the automated function came about, you had people standing in the elevator, partly because they were people were expecting that, and partly because people needed a job. Now automators are fully functional. The only time you see an elevator operator is when it's a super fancy location and we all kind of go nuts. Same thing when we used to go to Oregon and have to wait for them to pump our gas, right? Automation, the primary reason why Oregon passed the law, and New Jersey as well, to require someone officially trained to pump the gas was because they were concerned about the jobs that the automated pumps took away. Well, it's kind of a farce, and Oregon's now changed the role there. So there's two things that we need to consider when we automate. The first thing that we consider is we always want to monitor and tweak and adjust because our audience changes. Think about how you consume media today. Think about how you buy things today. Think about how you conduct your research today versus even just a year ago or 5 years ago. So if we set some automation in place today and then we don't touch it for a couple of years, it's probably not going to be very effective. The other thing we got to think about is when we can automate something, it frees us up now to go focus on other areas. And so maybe we don't have to focus on tweaking and adjusting for 6 months or a year. We just kind of watch the stats. If it's continuing to perform, we let it roll. If it stops performing, we make adjustments. But it allows us to create other campaigns that allow for other forms of automation. So correct, the answer is no. We can't just set it and forget it. We have to come back to it. We have to revisit it. We have to make adjustments. And we always want to work on additional things. So again, here's the link in case you didn't get it. tributmedia.com/HubSpot free. I will spend 30 minutes with you. We'll get it installed on your website. We'll give you some basics on training. No obligation, no cost. You are welcome to use the free version forever. But what's the coolest about the user analytics is it will tell you every page on your website that someone came to visit, and when they did it, and when they filled out a form. So when I get a sales lead and I pick up the phone and call them, I can see, oh, you visited these last 10 pages. Or I can get a revisit notification that says, so-and-so came back and visited your site. And I can call them up and say, hey, I just noticed you were on my products page. Do you have any questions I can answer? And we know that 398 times out of 400, they're going to say, thanks for calling. I appreciate that. So, truemedia.com/HubSpot free. On that page is a link to my calendar. You'll just be able to schedule a time with me. Typically, we do them remotely, but I have no objection for you to come into our office in downtown Meridian if you're so inclined. Okay, so last thing, we've got just a few more minutes. Any questions, comments, word remarks?
It may not tie in particularly well with what you said. I have been to your workshop. I do enjoy listening to you. I have tried to use HubSpot. Every time I go in, I have to reset my password. Every time.
Well, that's weird.
And then I can get in and I can function and I can do, but if I get out of it and come back in later, I have to reset my password to the exact same password.
Can I-
That's weird. So Lindsay is one of our HubSpotters.
Yeah, so and actually I have not had this particular issue with HubSpot, but I have had it with other softwares, and what it is they actually don't allow you to use the same password you just used. So what it's doing, it is glitchy. It's letting you in the first time, but it doesn't save that change you made because it wasn't a change. So try a brand new password. Really?
So
So their support is very responsive.
yeah, so I would send them bottom right-hand side help.
Yeah.
Click the support button. Very responsive support.
They
do a
on
great
it.
job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And come to our HubSpot user group meeting,
What time is it?
5 p.m.
Where's it
Each class
located?
at 6.
Downtown Meridian
Well,
Oh, it's at
At
your
our office.
at your place.
at our office. Yeah.
Okay.
You mentioned another program coming up in March.
Yeah. So the HubSpot user group is starting on Tuesday, and then on March 13th, we're actually gonna have a full day of HubSpot and marketing training.
This every Tuesday or the first Tuesday?
It's we're doing it once a month.
Yeah.
We're not sure if we can make it consistent. Like we think that Wednesdays are the best
But
days.
if I go to your site, it'll say that.
Yeah. So yeah, register. Come next week. At least fill out the form so we can put you on our mailing list.
Okay.
And then we'll make sure that we send you notifications when they come up.
Okay.
Is that
Yeah.
training free?
Yeah, it's all free. Yeah, HubSpot pays for it.
And it's at your place?
Yeah. And the truth is almost all the training at our place is free, whether it's HubSpot or not.
Autofill, are you seeing to what degree people are utilizing autofill now?
Autofill. So that's an interesting thing. So I presume you're probably asking about autofill, like when Chrome stores your data.
Chrome,
Firefox, whatever, and it
et
fills out the
cetera, et
forms.
cetera.
So that has become, and I haven't seen the actual stats on that. So a lot of this is my own conjecture. But a lot of people are using that just because it's so easy to use now. It automatically does it.
Yeah.
However, one thing that marketing automation can do is it can actually pre-populate the fields with information that we already have. So for example, if I fill out the contact form on your website, and then next time I come back and I want to fill out the contact form again, it could pre-populate it on your website with my name, contact information, and just leave the message field blank to simplify my process. But what's even cooler about what marketing automation can do is what we call progressive profiling. And it's not like the FBI doing some profiling, we're profiling our clients. So maybe I fill out information on your site the first time I come. The next time I come and I fill out another form, instead of asking me the same questions that you already know about me, it gives me additional questions so I can continue to fill out my profile. And I don't even necessarily know. Maybe what's the kind of buyer I am, or maybe it's what am I interested in, in my off hours, or whatever it is that will help you gain additional knowledge. And usually people are very open and willing to provide that information, especially if it's just a couple of times. So if you've got great content and people can fill out multiple forms, then you can change the fields that they fill out every time they come back, so that you can gather more information about them and help
So
them.
it's also because people shy away from initial big forms, right?
Yeah, the shorter the form, the more likely it is that people are going to fill it out. So maybe we only gather the very first time their first name, last name, and email address. That's it. Mm-hmm. The next time we verify their email address, and then we gather 2 bits of additional information. We already have their first and last name.
Oh, okay.
Then the next time we verify their email address and gather 4 or 5. And sometimes you don't even have to verify their email address. Sometimes you can just say, well, we know it's your computer. So just give us some additional information and then get this document, schedule this meeting, whatever the case might be. So that's a great use of marketing automation for website actions. Yeah.
Your original premise and most of the presentation was leading towards an actual person-to-person interface of some sort.
Yes.
Go back to your original premise that let's say for purposes of discussion, your objective was you introduced the book there,
Yeah.
the first one,
Mhm.
that is your final. What you want me to do is not send in to get the book, but to sell the book, and we would no customer person-to-person interface would be required.
That's correct. So it depends on what your objective is, right?
Yeah.
In a business-to-business environment, we want to talk to them, or in a large ticket sales item,
Right.
even if it's business to consumer, we
Right.
want them. But if it was to sell a book, now the buyer's journey is probably going to be a lot shorter for a $25 book
Right.
than it is for a $20,000 car, right? That buyer's journey, it's not hard. I can scan through this and I can look at the pages and I can say, yeah, I'm interested in buying that. It might take 10 minutes to make that decision.
Right.
So we've got to make sure that we think about how that buyer's journey fits in to the specific type of buyer, to the product we sell, etc.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Please feel free to reach out if there are any additional questions. We'd love to see you at the HubSpot user group meeting next week. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
The March is a one-day